Positive Tomorrows is a social service agency with the main program being that of a private school designed specifically for homeless children and their families.
I think of us as an elite private school, the kind that you'd want to send your kids to if you had all the money in the world, but we happen to be for families that have some of the least resources in Oklahoma City.
We hear from children who have come from typical schools that they have felt very alone there, that they're really on their own. And it's hard for them to really make friends because they're not on the same playing field as they are. You know, they don't do birthday parties, they don't do sleepovers, they don't do those things.
When they're able to come here, they feel like, okay, I have a fighting chance for my child to have a seat in a school that's going to see them, that's going to hear them, and really make sure their needs get met.
It was the start of last school year where we had one of our teachers was sitting with a class, one of our 4th and 5th grade teacher was sitting with her class at the lunch table. And during the course of lunch, one of the boys said, "At my old school, I was the bad kid." And then several others in that same class, they said, "Me too, at my school, I was the bad kid." So so many of them have been labeled, and just because of things that cause them to act out in certain ways. And so we don't do that here, and I know they feel very safe and secure.
I think it means hope for them. I think it means hope in a desperate situation. I just got off the phone right before coming to sit down and talk with you with someone that I had to tell them that we're full. And so I put them on our wait list or turned away list as being full. And this is someone that you could just hear them fall. Their hopes fall because they know the type of support and care they get here is going to be different than being mixed in with a group of 30, 40 kids in a classroom in public school. They just don't feel confident that their child is going to get their needs met. When they're able to come here, they feel like, okay, I have a fighting chance for my child to have a seat in a school that's going to see them, that's going to hear them, and really make sure their needs get met.
And because we operate independently and we can make a lot of decisions about how we're going to be, we're very flexible. And we look at a family, and we look at a child, and we do what we need to do for that child. It was I think it was 2 years ago, we had a young man come to our school. I believe he was a 4th grader. He had never really been in school before. He wasn't reading, didn't know much at all. We did place him in that classroom with kids his size. He did PE with them, he did music and art, he did all of those things with him. But then after lunch when he would just slide over to the 1st grade classroom and get some private reading instruction from that teacher. And so we were able to meet both of those needs. So he would spend a little bit of time with the 1st grade teacher and learn what he needed to learn, and then he would go back and be with his peers. We're all about, when you start holding kids back, then you start limiting their ability to graduate from high school. The numbers drop dramatically. So those are things we're able to pay attention to. Our disciplinary, there are things that the state requires you to do if a child makes a certain threat or all of those kinds of things. But we don't have to do that because we're not one of those schools. So because we're private, we can deal with what that child needs at that particular time. If they threaten to kill somebody, we don't have to expel them. We can understand that that's coming from a trauma background, and we can get that child into counseling. If it's really a serious threat, we can get him what he needs, the help that he needs, and just go from that standpoint.
A comment from a parent a couple years ago that really stuck with me is she said, by the time we get to you, we've been beaten up and bruised by the child welfare system, the homeless shelter system, sometimes the criminal justice system. And by the time we get to you, we feel really discriminated against and judged. And through being here, this parent said, having someone call me to tell me good news about my child or just taking the time to listen to me whenever I needed them, that helped me build a different relationship with school in general. I used to not want to pick up the phone when the school called, and now I do. And so I think how it changes is they have a new relationship not only to the institution of education and schooling for their children, but the idea of loving to learn and the idea to be excited about participating in their child's education.
Parents are grateful for an opportunity to see that the kids really find the academic supports that they need. I think there's there's a real misconception about parents of children who are in poverty. We hear a lot about that these parents don't care about their kids, they don't show up at school, they don't really care about any of that stuff. And that's totally opposite from what we see. These parents want the same thing for their kids as anybody else. It's just that they need the extra support to see that happen. We have probably 95% participation in our parent-teacher conferences. And that is because we remove the barriers. We make sure that parents have transportation to get here. If you're living in the homeless shelter and conferences are after school, you will miss dinner. So we make sure they get fed. We make sure they have child care. We make sure all of those things are done. And parents, shift workers, if they don't work, they don't get paid. And so we work around their schedule and we provide everything they need so they can come and talk to that teacher. That's a very important part of the process, and parents are grateful for that.
We see parents who, when they first come in here, they kind of flood in the door oftentimes with just a torrent of anxiety behind them of all the things going on. And there's such a beautiful transformation that happens when you see that they're in a house, maybe they're back working, the child hasn't missed school in a while, and they come in and they're talking about different goals around, you know what, I want to go back to school. And they have this ease and sense of peace about them that says, I've taken back the reins of my own life. And then when you celebrate those victories with them and you see them get a sense of a vision and a sense of that my life is starting to become my own again, then you know that you're looking at empowerment. It is tuition free. We use by any means necessary. It's mostly the community. Individual donations are our biggest contribution, but any grant, any foundation that's offering some kind of support, we have different scholarship funds that we apply for.
We are a United Way partner, a United Way agency, and so we do get United Way funding. Again, that comes from private gifts. We were fortunate this past year to get some of the gear funding through the CARES Act with the governor's office. And then we also are beneficiaries of the tax credit scholarship program. And that's one that has really made a difference for us as we were getting ready to build this building. And we knew that our annual gifts would probably go down because people were making gifts toward the building. And the tax credit scholarship provided all the difference for us, is that we were able just to, that filled that gap. We were able to move right ahead, and it's been very valuable for us.
The need is great. We've built this new school that is amazing, and we're filling it best we can, but still by the midway point of this year, we've turned away almost 100 students, and because we don't have space. And with the global pandemic and the ripple effects of an economic downturn that come from that, we're going to see more family homelessness.
So we know that there are more kids that we would like to be able to serve. Currently in this building, we have classrooms that are waiting for that. We would like to grow, so add some teachers, add some classrooms, and that's only going to be possible if we can find additional funding. I've worked in nonprofits all my life, pretty much all my life, and this place has probably been the most gratifying place I've ever worked. And we get comments. It's not unusual for me to get comments from people about how difficult it must be, how hard you must hear so many horrible stories, how hard it must be. But it's actually the opposite of that, because the kids, we serve great kids, and they're here and they're happy and they're funny. And when I'm tired of looking at spreadsheets, I can walk down the hall and see something going on. So, we know we're making a change. We know we're making a change in their lives. So, and we see kids who love to come to school. Right before Thanksgiving, our pre-K class, there was a young man in our pre-K class who discovered that during the week of Thanksgiving that we would not be having school. And he was upset, and he told his teacher that he wanted to come to school. That was not fair. And before that teacher in the pre-K class knew it, the whole class was standing up saying, we want to come to school. We don't, so that's the kind of thing that we see. We see kids who love to come to school who would spend more time here if they could. And that means a lot.